Hi, welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adeep Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter, and today we're going to be talking about the state of running backs in the NFL. We're going to talk about the Angels buying, the Mets selling, some other trade news. But first, we'll talk about Justin Herbert signing a massive contract. He signs a 5-year, $262.5 million deal. I think it's about 219 in total guaranteed money. What were your thoughts when you saw this deal?
I mean, I wasn't surprised. He's now the highest paid quarterback in the history of the league, but that's only going to remain the case for what days, weeks, maybe months until Joe Burrow gets his contract. But Justin Herbert is the real deal. Deal also has a no trade clause, 133.7 million in full guarantees. The quarterback market continues to spin. And now the Chargers, they're going to be faced with the reality of not having to be able to pay some of these premiums for other positions because they have Herbert locked up. And I think Herbert's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league. He fully deserves this kind of contract. And, the Chargers are an interesting team heading into this year. You just blew that 27-0 lead in the playoffs. I think that team's under a lot of pressure going forward, but Herbert's not. Like, he's the guy. Like, that's the thing. They're not going to get rid of him. Like, that's not going to happen. But if a similar situation comes up and they falter again just because that's the franchise, you could see someone like a Brandon Staley get canned, or they switched out offensive coordinators this past season. I don't think you're going to do that again. I think Staley will be the next one to go. But in terms of Herbert, he has the raw talent, he has the ability, he has shown it on the field. He has an absolute cannon of an arm. His mobility is also a great asset. I have really no problems with this contract. I just hope that he can continue to play at this level on a team that, let's just face it, they've been cursed for a long time. They don't call chargering, they don't call the Chargers when something bad happens chargering for no reason. But I really do hope that he continues to play his butt off. And I expect that he will, but I have no problems with this contract. But these quarterback contracts are just going to continue to get higher and higher, especially after the Joe Burrow one that's coming up soon.
Yeah, I thought it was a good move by the Chargers. My first thought is, man, it's gonna be really tough to keep for the Bengals to keep the three Higgins, Chase, and Burrow now
Burrow,
because
yeah.
because the first thing is when you look at the thing, 5 years, 262.5 million, whatever. That's Burrow's gonna get 265. We kind of expected that. Lamar got 260. Herbert got
Mm-hmm.
262.5. The 219 million in total guarantees is the big thing here because one, the Browns look really stupid now, giving Watson 230 in fully guaranteed money. The other thing is, so now that means 219. So let's see, Lamar got 185, I believe, in total guaranteed money.
Right.
Herbert got 219. So now you're looking at,
It was 219.
yeah,
I had the
something.
wrong, I had the wrong number by accident, but that's my fault.
Yeah, so I would say that would be the case. So I would imagine Burrow's going to top 230 in total guarantee. In the total
Oh,
guarantee.
yeah. Herbert got 193.7 million in injury guarantees. That's what it
Yeah.
was. Sorry.
And then and I think there's like a kicker that can push it up to 219 or something. It was something like that. But
Right.
yeah, so he got basically a lot. It's a lot. So it's going to be really interesting because now we know Burrow's going to get. We thought it was going to be over 200. Now it's going to be like probably over 230, which is going to be interesting because now Chase is going to ask for 30 million a year. T. Higgins is probably going to be around 25 million a year. I mean, now I understand why the Bengals are drafting all defense now because they're going to spend. They need to high draft picks could balance out the thing. Now, as for the Chargers, yeah, you're right. This is going to really make put Brandon Staley's job. He's on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat because right now they're cycling through offensive coordinators. So they've clearly said that position is going to be determined by Justin Herbert. They paid Justin Herbert all that money. Brandon Staley has been on the hot seat for a while. I think that if Brandon Staley does not do well, the more offensive coordinators he goes through, the more his job's on the line. Because you have a really talented quarterback, you got a really talented roster. Even though you have and we're going to talk about running backs later, but you have an unhappy running back in Eckler. But now you have The quarterback secured, so it's gonna be interesting. It is interesting. I mean, people were saying, "Oh, it's a good move. It's a good move." I mean, yeah, it's gonna be. He's gonna have to some of the excuses he had before, head coach, lack of player success, is going to definitely factor in a little bit more. But let's see what he does. He definitely has the tools. Unless Jordan Addison continues to drive 140 miles an hour, we yeah, we're not going to worry about that part too much. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's going to be a good move for him. Well, I mean, do you think? So I'm going to give you an example of what Burrow could sign for. You tell me what you think if you think it's going to be over or under 5 year. I'm going to say 5 years, 267. I'm going to say with a guarantee of signing probably around 175, with about 215 in injury guarantees, and it can go up to about 240.
I'll give you 5 years, 280 million with maybe 230 in million guarantees total. Maybe 215 in injury, but it can go up to 230. I'm going to go 280 million total. Do you think there's a way he gets around 300 million, or is that too much yet? Too much, or is that too far away?
So I think that for Burrow to get 300 million, which is very possible, here's
Hmm.
what would have to happen. The Rams, in my opinion, would have to ditch Stafford in the next couple of years and basically, and maybe Stetson Bennett's not the answer, and say, we want Joe Burrow. We don't care. Screw them picks. They're going to use, if they use that mentality, if they come in, they can drive that market. That'll be the first thing. The Saints are another team. Um, if right now, whoever the quarterback is right now, I forgot who it is, whatever their quarterback situation is, and
It's
um,
the Saints. It's Derek
Carr.
Carr.
Yeah. So after Derek Carr, if Derek Carr doesn't work out, we know that the Saints don't care about draft pick, don't care about the cap, and we know that Joe Burrow played in LSU. What's near LSU? New Orleans. There's a proximity there. So the fan base, it would be kind of an interesting thing. Like he would already have that fan base there. I could see them doing it. I Jets are on a 2 year deal, I believe, with Aaron Rodgers. We'll see
It
what they
is
do
too.
there.
Yeah.
Um, not my point is for 300 million for Joe Burrow. If there is a big market for him, and teams that right now aren't like they're on a stopgap quarterback, especially those teams that aren't afraid aren't afraid on the cap, you better believe they're going to go after Joe Burrow. And imagine what that will do to the thing.
I mean, if he's not locked up by then, I understand Mike Brown is not that good of an owner. Let's put that out there, but I don't think he's that much of an idiot to let it get to that point where Joe Burrow is not locked up. I would be pretty surprised, to be honest. I understand he's notoriously cheap as an owner, and they have Jamar Chase get to sign, excuse me, and T. Higgins. I think of those three, T. Higgins is not going to come back. I think they're going to prioritize Burrow and
And he
Chase.
can be a number one receiver somewhere else. That's the other
He
thing.
could be a number one wide receiver on probably half the teams in this league. I
Yeah.
think he's that good. The fact that they have both of them locked up right now is pretty crazy, but I don't think it's going to get to that point personally. I think Burrow is going to be locked up maybe before the season, maybe after. I'd maybe lean before the season, but I'm just kind of guessing at that point. But I think he's going to get locked up before he becomes a free agent.
Let me ask you a question though. Let's say he doesn't get. I think I agree with you. I think he'll get locked up before the season starts. I think he'll have a new contract. However, what I will say is this: let's say he doesn't, right? And he's not signed, and we're getting into week 6, week 7, and the Lamar situation is repeats in Cincinnati. What is your thoughts then?
Then
Like,
that's tough because like you have because like the Lamar situation, you had a trade request. The Ravens were not interested in honoring that, and they were kind of calling his bluff, which they did, and they didn't trade him, and they eventually came to a deal. So I think in that situation, I still think a deal is going to get ironed out no matter what, even after the situation that you just proposed to me. Like, say it's similar to the Ravens because there was a little bit of bad blood there, but the Ravens also called his bluff. and all that. Say that happens again, and Burrow does put a trade request in, for example. Do
He
you
also has
expect him?
Sanchez and Lamar doesn't, so there might be some there could be
That's true.
some backdoor brewing conversations brewing. Maybe again some back behind the scenes of someone from the Rams or someone from the Saints or someone from the
You're
Broncos.
right.
Like yeah, someone
Yeah,
saying that going to them saying, hey, if you were on the open market, it's kind of like because this is kind of like this is an odd comparison, but it's like with Otani, right? With Otani, it's like, oh yeah, we're anticipating him hitting free agency. So I firmly think that there are teams out there trying to talk at least to his agent and at least try to sell themselves before, just in case an opportunity comes. So I agree with you, but it's just an interesting thought. Like the time is kind of running out on it a little bit. So what happens if it does come to that point? So I mean, it is going to be interesting on that one.
I agree. I mean, again, I think this is probably going to get done in the next month or so. But hey, I'm always up for something wild to happen where this doesn't occur.
Yeah, and obviously we do need another big free agent frenzy. Where would this guy sign? And yeah, and that might be him. I mean, it might be someone else. So wherever. So now we're going to talk about running backs. Obviously, the quarterback is one of the more highest paid quarterback positions in football, and then one of the offensive positions right now that's significantly declining right now is the running backs. Obviously, we had Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, you had Jim Irsay. Just keep your mouth shut. It's like right now the running back market sucks, and everyone can kind of point to other reasons, but Ursay
Sir,
saying,
this is a Wendy's. This is a Wendy's, sir. You're talking
yeah,
about dying tomorrow. Is
yeah,
there a day where Jim Irsay is not sober? Can you answer that for me?
no, no, no. But you have that situation, and now Jonathan Taylor requesting a trade, which, by the way, Peyton Manning left. They dang near almost paralyzed Andrew Luck with poor protection. They haven't been able to go through. They've cycled through quarterbacks like most of us cycle through socks at this point. And yet Ursay says we respect players. Like, no, you don't. First of all, I'm glad that the Ursay family is away from Baltimore, and we don't have to. We're not connected to him. That's Indianapolis's problem. It's Johnny Unitas. It's people. It's the Colts. It's some of the members of the Baltimore Colts. Johnny Unitas. Everything else about that franchise, Indianapolis can have it. But that's gonna be interesting there. Obviously, Dalvin Cook visited the Jets. That's gonna be really interesting. You had this, Ezekiel Elliott visiting the Patriots. We had the running back summit. I mean,
Oh,
what?
Saquon Barkley signed a deal, so he's going to play this year
Yep.
now.
But
Yep.
what's your opinion on this state of running backs? Obviously, it's such a big topic.
Here's where I stand. I think the running back position is kind of like the goaltending position in the NHL. All you really need is average running back production to make a run, I think, to a Super Bowl. And I probably should, well, the Chiefs are a bad example because they have Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to use them as an example, but you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and Jalen Hurts is awesome, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles really don't have that superstar running back on their team. And you see all these other teams that make the playoffs and go deep with, fine running backs, no one like major anything like that. But at the same time, I also understand that they want more money because of the position they play, the punishment that they take with all the carries that they have, all the receptions that they have. I
Pass
totally,
protection,
yeah,
pass protection, special teams.
you're 100% right. I totally understand that. That said, something needs to change, whether it's the CBA or whether it's something else, if you want these teams to pay the running backs. You might as well just have like a new position for them. For example, Indeed, if you want to have like a hybrid,
Slot
yeah,
receiver.
like a receiver hybrid, if you want to pay them all like Debo Samuel money, because he's kind of a hybrid player. He goes in the backfield, he splits out wide, he goes on the line sometimes. If you want to do that and make a new position, okay, maybe you can do that. But right now, with the running back position the way it is, these players are not going to get these kinds of contracts because once they get these deals, Adit, they fall off pretty quick.
Yep.
That's the thing. And teams are
Gurley,
afraid of it.
Todd Gurley, for example.
Yes. I mean, I hate to say it, Le'Veon Bell, example, prime one right there. And when you get all these seasons in a row, say 3 to 4 even of 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards, 1,500 yards, 10, 15 touchdowns, you have 400, 500 more receiving yards, right? You have almost of 2,000 scrimmage yards on your team. That takes a toll on you. And when you're up for a new contract with all of the production that you've had, teams are scared about it because they think that you're going to falter immediately. And again, I understand why running backs feel the way they do because they want to prove that they can maybe, break the trend of not faltering off earlier than expected. But until we see that happen, teams are going to continue to be more scary, or not scary, more nervous when it comes to giving out big money to running backs. That's why you really don't see it that often in today's game outside of a Derrick Henry, for example. Josh Jacobs, I think, could get some money, but right now he's away from the Raiders. Saquon Barkley just got a deal. He's finally going to get paid, but the Giants are going to have the same song and dance next year, right? So this is only going to continue to, what's the word I'm looking for? Get worse, I think, as the years go on. They negotiate the CBA. That's what it is right now. They have to make changes, I think, to that as well for this to really, I think, dive into something. Because I get it. Running back is a very important position in the league, but there are still other positions where I would rather spend my money. Quarterback, wide receivers, your defensive line in the trenches, especially your offensive line, especially. But I just don't see this changing right now. Sorry, it was a long rant, but I had to say all that.
Yeah, I don't think it will change, and I think you're going to see a lot of infighting in the next CBA because what's going to happen? Here's what's going to happen. So quarterbacks are going to get their money no matter what. That's going to be a big thing. But you think about offensive line are going to get their money because think about it, right? It's your quarterback that gets the most amount of money. Then you have to protect your asset. That's your offensive line, right? So I think guards and centers they're going to get paid more. Tackles obviously are going to get paid are already paid a ton. Then it's like you need someone to throw the ball to, right? So you need that number one receiver. What's going to happen? The receiver money is going to get paid. Then with receivers and tight ends, however you feel about the commonalities between the two positions, tight ends are going to start to get paid a little bit more. But now it's we still got these running backs that they do play a part, but we've already paid our CEO of our offense. We paid the people that are protecting him. We paid the receivers. We paid the tight ends. How much money is left to pay to the running backs? But also, by the way, there's a disparity between the pay level of each position. That's gonna be what's tricky. And I think owners. I think it's gonna be really interesting because Dean Maurice Smith was voted out. I forgot who was. I think so. I don't know if they've announced who's replacing him. So that's gonna be really interesting. That's gonna be part of the next CBA. You're gonna start to see that one position, and you better believe owners. This is what I think. Owners are going to use this. Owners want this to happen. They want the running back market to decrease because what's going to happen is running backs are not going to want more money. That means less money are going to be taken out of the pockets of your linemen, of your receivers, of your corners, of your safeties, everyone else. And then it's like, well, we like you guys, but now you're impacting our bottom line, so there's going to be a lot of infighting. Now, the running back situation, it sucks because they play such a big part. They're like I said, pass protection. They run the ball. You cannot win a Super Bowl with a one-dimensional passing attack.
Right.
At some point, you got to run the ball. So I think you definitely need balance, and I think that's the sad part. Like these guys are valuable, but they're underpaid. Yeah, it's gonna be rough. I think your rant was perfect. But it's a change that needs to happen, but it's a change that could get ugly really quick. As for the running back activity, Dalvin Cook going to the Jets, Ezekiel Elliott going to the Patriots makes sense. I could see Zeke going to the Patriots. He seems like a Bill Belichick guy. Josh Jacobs, that's just a mess. Saquon Barkley, that's gonna remain a mess at some point. But what do you think of Dalvin Cook potentially going to the Jets?
I mean, seeing him and Breece Hall in the same backfield would be a lot of fun. That just gives the Jets more weapons for their offense and also more options to spread the wealth around. You have Aaron Rodgers, you have Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook. You have I'm blanking on some of their other receivers' names who I obviously know are there. Indeed, Corey Davis, I believe, is one of them as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Corey Davis, Denzel
Corey
Mims went to
Davis.
the Lions. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean they have plenty of weapons, and you can have Hall and Cook in the same backfield at the same time, and that would be quite a bit of fun. I mean, Cook, you can give him quite a bit of carries, but you can also maybe reduce them so he's not just the guy in Minnesota. He's not. He's still really good, not what he once was, I think, in my opinion. But if you can still get like, I don't know, 700, 800 yards out of him, that's pretty good. And if you add 800 more from Brees Hall or maybe a little bit more, you have one of the best running back duos in the league, in my opinion. So I would be all for that. Seeing Ezekiel Elliott go to the Patriots, I think, is a total Bill Belichick kind of move, trying to squeeze out every inch he can out of a player, even though he's a little bit older. He can kind of be the guy or the main running back in New England's offense. When you look at their depth chart
It's Ramondre Stevenson. And I
right now,
forgot.
yeah, you got Ramondre Stevenson, you got Ty Montgomery, who's also not bad. But if you pair Stevenson with Zeke Elliott, that's also a pretty strong backfield. Stevenson, I think, had a really good year for the Patriots this past season, finished with 1,040 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. You pair that with someone like Zeke, who can give you still 800, 900 yards. You have a pretty good rushing attack, and that helps out Mac Jones so that he where he doesn't have to be the guy every single play. So I wouldn't be surprised if both those moves happen, to be honest.
Do you think this is for anyone who is going to do pretty much everyone who's doing fantasy? Does this increase Mike Gesicki's stock? Because obviously, if you got the run
Mike
game,
Gesicki,
yeah,
it could. I mean,
because you got
they're
the
they're
run
going
game.
to use him.
Run game leads
They're
to
going to
play
use him
action.
quite a bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say so. Especially, I mean, even if they do get Zeke, he's still going to get a ton of.
but also the more you run, the more you're using your tight ends, and then based off that, you would be building off a Smith-Schuster by building off some of these other guys. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like I think it's a good move for them. I mean, obviously they tried for DeAndre Hopkins, they didn't get him. Apparently, Kayshon Boutte, the LSU receiver, is working out for them. So, but at least for them, at least for the Patriots fans, Christian Gonzalez is working for them apparently so far. So, we'll move on. We'll take from the NFL to MLB. The Los Angeles Angels. They are keeping Otani and they are buying. First of all, I will say this: they said that they're buying and they're going for. They traded for Giolito. They traded for Ronaldo Lopez. And oh yeah, by the way, they lost the last 2 games. So, yep, that's
They were 3 games out last time I checked. I don't think it's like that anymore, though. Now,
nope.
look, when your superstar player, one of them, is going to be free agent after this season, you kind of have no choice in the situation to buy. And so I understand it. Now, is it funny? Yes, because their record is not that good. And I think it's going to be even funnier if they do miss the playoffs and then he walks and signs this massive deal.
Giolito walks, and Ronaldo Lopez walks.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, Reynaldo Lopez and Lucas Giolito, they are 2 decent pitchers. They used to play on the Washington Nationals. They were I believe they were both in the trade for Adam Eaton that
Yep.
came over from the White Sox.
Yep.
So I'm pretty familiar with them. They throw some really good stuff. They can help them in the stretch run, but man, they're still without Mike Trout right now. It's just a tough ask. I mean, you're asking Otani to do everything for you on a daily basis, but I mean, again, you kind of had no choice, but still, like just buying with that record, with where you're at in the standings, it's tough because if this goes wrong and the prospects you gave up to get those players pan out, they're going to be looking really bad, especially if Otani walks and gets the contract that I think a lot of us are expecting him to get, which is probably going to be the richest contract in the history of Major League Baseball. So they may not be done. We'll have to see. But I guess I'm not super surprised. But again, I maybe would have just stood pat.
All right. So the Orioles, they were winning from 2012 to 2018. However, they were now one of the best teams in baseball or in the American League. They were in a position where they would be around 80-ish wins. Like they had the year they won 96 games, but they were around 80 to 87, 88 wins. So kind of where the Angels are right now. And the Orioles, what happened with them was they kept thinking they could win over and over and over again. They would trade. They traded Josh Hader and LJ Hose for Bud Norris. They traded Zach Davies for Geraldo Parra. They made these trades, and it was under the guise of we're competing. And these weren't superstar moves. This was not a team that was. This was a very clear ceiling. And what happened with the Orioles? Crashed,
Yep.
toppled, and they had to rebuild. And remember, Machado, and then they rebuild, and then the difference is the Orioles were on pace to win 47 games the year they traded Machado and everyone else. The Angels are not on pace to do that. That's what makes this so. That's what makes this so interesting. The Angels are in a position where they are delusional enough to compete, especially with and again, the extra playoff spot is creating delusion among a ton of fan bases, including the Central divisions as well. That's how frustrating it is, and that's why we have to wait until the last couple of days. All right, that's a big thing. So combine the extra playoff spot, which the Angels have no chance of getting, but you still have a chance in theory. So you're not going to trade away Ohtani, but you probably should. But teams know, like it's a mess. That is a mess. This is going to fall so flat on their face. Like I said, I think Giolito's going to walk at the end of the year. I think Renato Lopez is going to. They're going to miss the playoffs. Ohtani's going to walk. They're not going to get back a good return for him. They're not going to get back a good return for him at all. And this is a team that's going to go back to what it was in 2012, 2013. You had Mike Trout for however long. You don't have anyone else. You brought in Ohtani, but didn't win. You brought in Rendon. He's gotten hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose Mike Trout, if the projection for the Angels was like this, in a good way, it's in a way that you wanted it, your failures are going to go from here to here. And that's what's going on here. So the Angels buying, I don't understand it. I don't understand this going all in. I think that Moreno should have sucked up his pride and traded Ohtani. I get the optics of it, but you know what? You know what? It was a good run. We couldn't win with you. Well, let's give you a chance. And I don't. By the way, I don't buy this whole thing of Ohtani told the Angels, "I want to be here." I don't buy into that at all. So, from one team that had expectations by keeping Ohtani, now let's talk about another team that spent a ton of money, traded a ton of players, and right now they are waving. If they haven't waved the white flag yet, they have the white flag in their hand.
Oh, just music to my ears, Adi. You're just I'm just salivating over this.
If Verlander gets moved, let me ask you this. Okay, do you think the Mets are the baseball equivalent of the Brooklyn Nets when they had KD, Kyrie, and James Harden?
Wow, that's actually a really good comparison, to be honest. I mean, the amount of money they spent, I would say yes. It's just who saw this coming? That's the thing. Who saw them spending the most amount of money in baseball, right? The most amount of the biggest payroll in baseball, if I recall correctly, more than the Dodgers.
2 40-year-olds heading up that rotation.
Yeah, and Scherzer, he was not happy. He beat the Nationals the other night, but after he spoke to the media, he was not happy, and the Mets worked very quickly to get a trade for him, and he agreed to it, so he'll be there for the rest of the season and next year. David Robertson, goodbye. Justin Verlander, you may be gone too. And I just don't know who saw this coming. I mean, sure, Edwin Diaz was out for the year. Very unfortunate injury during the World Baseball Classic. I felt awful for him. He was just trying to win for his country. It sucks. That said, even without him, I still thought this was going to be at least a decent team. Wild card team at worst. I'm stunned by this. I know they just took 3 out of 4 from the Nationals, so I can't really dig on them too much because I know the Nationals are really bad this year. But just absolutely crazy how this is all panned out with the Mets. I don't really know who else they're going to sell, though. That's my question. Yeah, I mean, he could be in there. as well.
They
But
don't have any other assets. That's the
no,
thing.
you don't. I will say the prospect they got back for Scherzer was good.
You got
Acuna's,
Acuna.
Acuna's brother.
No, you got Acuna's younger brother, who, by the way, might be as good as he is. But right now, the headline is you got Acuna, younger brother. So
Hey, there's still a chance he could be really good. I mean,
yeah,
he's
no, of
a
course.
really good prospect, by the way.
Yeah, he is a good prospect. Apparently, Ronald Acuna said that his brother's like more advanced, like maybe not as talented, but more advanced
Yeah,
than Ronald was at his age. So take that as you will.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean yeah. So I think it's going to front load. Here's what I think: if they were to go, if they were to trade away Justin Verlander, Kodai Senga, who's good, will be their ace. That's not the story. What's after Kodai Senga?
Say that again. Sorry.
Okay, if they trade Verlander, Kodai Senga becomes their ace and he's good. But take after Kodai Senga, who do you have? Carlos Carrasco,
Yep, that's one. I actually.
Taiwan
Yep.
Walker. I believe Taiwan Walker, but yeah, I mean Jose Quintana.
It's not the greatest, that's for sure.
And it's almost like it's almost like the main stars. Your 240-year-old guys who were probably getting paid like by the way, the amount they were getting paid per year was probably 3 or 4 years off of what their actual age is. So that's how so clearly that wasn't the best strategy. They might be lucky by the fact that Verlander does want to stick around in for the with the Mets at least this year. I mean, like to your point, who could have expected this? Maybe people would have said, "Oh, next year." I did not think that they were going to fall off this bad this year. I mean, Buck Showalter is probably going to get fired at the end of this season. Billy Epler probably has no more than 2 years left. And oh yeah, and by the way, they may have screwed themselves in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes this offseason. Because if they wave the white flag, I don't know what Ohtani's going to feel about it. Because and then also like they had Correa, not anymore. I
Nope.
mean, so it is going to be the Mets are a giant mess. Also, let's talk about the trade deadline from other teams. So just a few deals. We'll talk about Rangers, but the Blue Jays went and traded for Jordan Hicks.
Just
Basically,
now. Yeah.
yep, flamethrowing reliever, throws 103. He's going to be in that back end of the bullpen. The Rangers traded for Scherzer. We'll talk about how we feel with the Rangers after that. They also traded for Jordan Montgomery from the Cardinals. Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton. So they got some
Texas
more.
is all in, man. They are in it to win it this year. I know the AL West is decently competitive. I mean, right now, I mean, that's a fun team to watch. And it's funny, the Nationals actually took 2 out of 3 against them when they came to Nats Park, which I was kind of surprised by. But you look at the AL West, that it's them in Houston, man. That's a fun race down the stretch with how good both of those teams are. But with Texas, you have Scherzer, you have Montgomery, you have Chris Stratton. They got another reliever, 2 starters. I mean, could they be getting a bat pretty soon as well if they want to upgrade their bench, get another hitter in there maybe? I could see that as well. But this is a team that wants to win the World Series this year, and they are showing it with these moves. I mean, I'm pretty excited. They're a fun team to watch, even though they have Aroldis Chapman because I don't really like him. But you have them. The Blue Jays made a move as well. This AL wildcard race, man, is pretty crazy, to say the least. Right now, Toronto is in that third and final spot. 2 games back are the Red Sox. 3 games back are the Yankees. You have Houston in there as well. They're kind of jockeying for that second spot. And then obviously you have the Rays and the Orioles really going to town to see who's going to win the AL East. The loser of that division, or the second place runner-up, is going to get
the first. We'll probably be the first wildcard team.
Be the first wildcard team, yeah, and that's no surprise. But I like those moves for both those teams. The Blue Jays they're making a run for the playoffs, and then the Rangers, if they're in a pennant race and they want to go to the World Series and win it.
Yeah, no, and then also we'll talk in Rangers there. the only thing I'll say with the Rangers are DeGrom's out for the year,
That sucks.
and Nathan Eovaldi's on the 10-day IL. So they were essentially replaced DeGrom with his teammate from last season, Max Scherzer. So now the Mets, you want to see next season? You want to see DeGrom? Well, I assume DeGrom's not going to be will be pitching next season if he had Tommy John a months ago or something. But it's interesting that I think I saw someone on Twitter say this, like the Rangers said, "Oh yeah, let's go." First of all, they by bringing in Bruce Bochy, they are going all in. So that's the first thing. Second thing, it's like, "Oh yeah, here's a winning strategy. Let's go and get an old like a pitcher from the Mets, Jacob DeGrom. Let's go and trade for a pitcher from the Mets." At first, I thought they're going to trade for Verlander, but I didn't think Max Scherzer would be the guy. But I guess that does make sense. Um, yeah, I mean that's gonna be interesting there. The Blue Jays like to move. Jordan Hicks does have some control issues. Obviously, anyone who throws 103, it's a good move for them. But we'll see what they do there. The Cardinals, everyone
They're
said,
in full sell mode. That's what they're
yeah,
doing.
it was. Everyone thought it would be earlier, but Montgomery going to the Rangers, Chris Stratton going to the Rangers, Hicks going to the Blue Jays, and then you have Jack Flaherty, who's still on the trade market. We'll see what he does. We'll see where he goes because I think he's going to get traded. I don't think Ryan Helsley is going to get traded. Arenado is not going to get traded. Goldschmidt's not going to get traded. So it's going to that team's going to be active a little bit. Dodgers are always going to be in the market. The Tigers, I'm surprised. Maybe the Tigers are the team in next couple of days to make a couple of moves. You have Lorenzen, Alex Lang, Jason Foley. So you still got some teams with assets, but I think it is if Shane Bieber wasn't hurt, maybe he's a guy that gets moved. So, and then it's gonna be interesting. Like and then obviously you have the Reds haven't made any moves. The Orioles went out along a couple weeks ago and got Shintaro Fujinami, which I like that move. He's basically a high ceiling pitcher from Japan. He failed. Like you look at his numbers, he had like a 12 ERA as a starter, but when he got to the reliever, he was like a 2 ERA, 3 ERA guy. This guy has 102 mile per hour fastball and 94 mile per hour splitter. I mean, the guy his nickname is Fuji, as in Mount Fuji for a reason. So great stuff. If he can manage, if he can throw strikes, that's a good late inning reliever. I see a lot of Orioles fans upset, like why isn't Mike Elias doing anything? It's like I think they're going to make a trade, and you're not going to like who they get because it's not one of the big names. Like the Cubs aren't going to be trading their guys because they're selling, just because they have that win streak. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a wild chase for the remainder of the trade deadline, and I think that's where when we're going to discuss any other moves that come up in next week's show, if we have a show next week or 2 weeks from now, or next show, we're going to talk about that, as well as we're going to be talking about some training camp news as well. We just want to talk a bit about the MLB trade deadline now because it's a bigger topic now.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the best times of the year for sports. You know, you got training camp in full swing. Preseason starts next month. Well, next month's in a couple of days. The NFL season starts in mid-September. College football comes back in almost a month. We're almost to the really good times of sports coming back. Because right now, I mean, I'll say it, it's definitely a little bit dead, but just with baseball. You have a little bit of NASCAR, some tennis just finished up. There were some golf majors, but outside of just MLB right now, there's really not much going on. But that's going to change in a big way coming soon, and we're both really excited about that.
Yep, and obviously college football coming up and within the next month, so we
just
might
said that. Come on now.
Yeah. So I think we'll talk a little bit about some of the recruits. There's some obviously Virginia. We haven't talked Virginia Tech a ton recently, but yeah. So we'll see you either next week or next 2 weeks or 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we'll see you all for our next show. Talk to you all then.
Bye.